Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Show. I'm your host, Muhammad Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia. On this episode, we have a very special guest. He is the podcast host of Everything is Personal, no other than Len May. And beside him being a podcast host, he is the cannabis industry expert for over 25 years. And a very interesting story. And please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Len May.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you. I
Len,
really
welcome.
appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah. Len, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to get into cannabis industry?
Yeah, well, I think who I was with was a bunch of teenagers because I was a kid that was taking medication for attention deficit disorder. So I was taking prescription medication for my own ADD, and some older kids asked me if I wanted to smoke a cigarette. And I thought I'd be a cool kid and I would smoke a cigarette with them. So they gave me a cigarette, they shared it with me, and I took a drag and I inhaled it, started coughing, and that was not a cigarette. It was filled with cannabis. But what happened to me is when I went back to class, I have a type of ADD where it's not hyperactive. It's just all these windows are open in my head. So what happened was the windows sort of shrunk and I was able to focus. So that became my go-to medicine. So I stopped taking all the prescription medication and started taking cannabis. And what happened was over the years, it led to my parents kicking me out of the house, calling the police on me, all these different things. But the irony of this is that my parents consume formulations right now for their aches and pains and other issues that I helped formulate. So that kind of brought it all back full circle for me.
Oh my God. Okay. So you have been involved in this 25 plus years.
Mhm.
And what 20, that's a long time. So is there something you want to share a little bit more, kind of
Yeah,
expand on this
for
one?
sure. So what happened with my journey is I became an activist. I became the president of the Cannabis Action Network. I held a rally back in 1993 at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, where the Constitution, Declaration of Independence is held. By the way, all written on hemp paper. And my keynote speaker was this lady named Elvie Masika, who was one of the first people to get medically prescribed cannabis by the federal government. And she took it for degenerative glaucoma. And when I saw her consume cannabis because she's legally blind and allowed her to see again, with glasses and everything, I thought to myself, well, if this is medicine for me, it's medicine for other people. What can I do to sort of push this forward? And in Pennsylvania, where I was from at the time, I live in Los Angeles now, it was illegal. So I did different things that I could based on the capabilities that I had, but I also had to get some real jobs. So I went to work for a Big Six consulting company, Price Waterhouse at the time. I worked at venture capital companies, and I worked in commercial real estate. I was a commercial real estate broker, but all the time I was still an activist and still a participant. And then it led me to Los Angeles, where I ended up getting involved in the dispensary business. And I owned and operated with partners 5 different dispensaries, cultivation facilities, etc. And one of the things that I started seeing was that there was 2 different people with the same exact symptomatic conditions that consumed the same exact cannabis and had a completely different experience. So I began to hyper focus on that and try to find a solution. And it sort of led me to launching, my company, Endo DNA.
Endo DNA. So this is the website we are talking about, endodna.com. You may want to check it out. I did check it before coming. It looks great.
Mhm.
And we are with Len May, and he is also the podcast host of Everything is Personal. So what's about Everything is Personal, Len?
Well, everything is personal. So it starts with your genetics, and that's my passion, right? So your DNA guides you to any experience. It's like I started with cannabis, but cannabis is only part of your full endocannabinoid system, which is your primary regulatory system. So for your listeners, think about it as your puppet master. It's a system that controls all your other systems. And the goal of the system is to be able to create balance, which is called homeostasis. So we're able to produce our own endogenous endocannabinoids to be able to do that. But for some people that have deficiencies, they consume phytocannabinoids from the cannabis plant to be able to subsidize that. And so it all starts with your DNA. And then what I learned was some DNA is inherited. Well, it's all inherited, but some of them is can be changed. So you think of it as light switches. So if we have a genetic predisposition to how tall we're going to be, or the color of our eyes, or our skin color, or for me, male pattern baldness, there's nothing I can really do to change that. However, other things can be turned on and off. And that's based on your lifestyle. That's called epigenetics, so the genetic expression. So for me, it is being able to share my personal story of other people, and things that I'm really interested about. And my co-host, he's an editor of a magazine, and he was interviewing me for a story. And I know we spent 20 minutes interviewing and then 2 hours talking about things that we like to talk about, which is music, which is cannabis, which is business, which is science. And then at some point when I couldn't travel based on COVID, I still had things I wanted to express. So he said, let's do a podcast. He's like, what are we going to talk about? I said, the same thing that we talk about on the phone between you and I, just things that we're interested in. And the goal wasn't to create this massive audience. The goal was to have a communication channel of things that we're interested in. And it so happens because we share personal stories, everything is personal, and people started gravitating towards that.
Wonderful, wonderful, Len. Len, based on your 25 plus years of experience being an activist for the cannabis industry, I'm sure there has been many ups and downs. So I'm going to ask two questions separately. So what are the top three missteps to avoid when you're being an activist from, nobody to become known? There's so much to.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is, for me, it's trust your instinct. It's the most important lesson that I can possibly convey to everybody. Your instinct is an extremely intelligent part of you. It's all your learned experience that you've had up to a certain moment that are stored in your subconscious. When your instinct, your spider sense, your gut tells you that something doesn't feel right, it's very, very learned skill. So be able to go with that. So for me, not trusting my instinct has led me into situations that I could have avoided if I would have trusted my instinct. The other lesson is equally as important. It is the team that you surround yourself with. You can never do this yourself. Hire fast, fire fast, and make sure that people are aligned with your mission. And this is going to sound kind of hokey, but there's a vibrational energy. There's a frequency. And you share that frequency throughout your entire team, and everybody's elevated in that because you're all aligned with the same mission. And putting people in a position where they can utilize their skill sets, I think will be able to lift the entire company. And I think that the people that you surround yourself are really, really key and super important.
Number three. These are two. Number three.
Would you ask three?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the third one is attorneys are our biggest expense. We spend more money on attorneys than anything else. However, it's the best use of our investment because we've had situations where we had lawsuits. You're exposed, and be able to close any back door that somebody can come through, because we are an IP company. We file a lot of IP and we do a lot of things, and it's a big undertaking, but you have to make sure that you have good attorneys that are supporting you. You may think that it's an investment and it's a lot of money, but when that door opens and you need them, you want to be fully protected. So that would be my third piece of advice is make sure you're surrounded by good attorneys. And on the attorney front, different attorneys have different specialties. We have attorneys that are business attorneys that are helping with M&A and transactions. And then we have other attorneys that specialize in intellectual property. So make sure that you do your due diligence and find, the right type of attorney to fit the needs that you need right now.
Wonderful. So these are the missteps to avoid. So what are your top three success secrets?
Yeah, the success secrets are that it's the flip side of what I said is the things to avoid. The number one success secret that I would share is follow your passion. For me, The cannabis has been a part of my life since I was a teen. And there has been so many obstacles. I know people that were aligned in my journey 20 years ago, they stopped. They went into a different, vehicle because it was easier. But if you really truly believe, you have to step out of that comfort zone. Focus on things that are uncomfortable for you, because on the other side of that is the opportunity. So the law caught up to where we were, where I was. So make sure that you follow your instinct, you follow your passion, and you follow your mission in life. That's one. Number two, when you're connecting to that passion, make sure that you're making a contribution, because anything that you put out in the universe comes back to you without you actually feeling that. So make sure that whatever you're doing, there's some sort of contribution that you're making. My whole thing is I want to make sure that I leave anything better than when I first entered the place or the opportunity. So I leave it better. So make an impact that way. And the third thing is it's okay to make mistakes. I think mistakes are part of the learning process. There's many companies and cultures that don't value mistakes. Every single time that you make a mistake, that you're wrong, that you fail, that's a learning experience. Make sure that you take that, you learn from that, and you improve and go forward. So the culture that you create in your household, in your business, in anything you do, it's okay to make mistakes. It's just part of the culture. So those would be the three that I would put out.
Wonderful. And I'm going to ask one follow-up question to which you mentioned in your intro, in your story. Your parents kicked you out at a certain age from your home based on your situation because of ADD and probably, not for creating more troubles for them than at least that's what they were thinking. And how did you keep going in that time? If you can recall that part.
Yeah. So my parents kicked me out for consuming cannabis, but they didn't only kick me out. They actually called the police on me and tried to have me arrested. And because they didn't know any better, they were brainwashed that this is a drug, etc. I was homeless for a while, and it's trying to get yourself back on track. And this is a philosophical type of discussion, but it's being able to release and forgive, because the things that you hold on to, you got to put yourself empathetically in what people, where they're coming from. So instead of me being angry and holding on to that, I was very empathetic and sympathetic, and I talk to my dad every single day now. He's in Philadelphia to try to see. And so we have a good relationship, and I understand where they were coming from, and I don't hold that grudge. So for me, being able to overcome that took a lot of personal work. So working on yourself, being able to understand your contribution to every situation, and then being able to overcome those obstacles and say that in the big scheme of things, they did it out of love, right? So you go back to the reason why empathetically you come from that space and being able to overcome that. For me, I wouldn't change anything, because that situation of being homeless, that situation of being poor, that situation of couch surfing on different people's apartments, that allows me to maintain my hunger. And that hunger is a key element in success. So when you have secrets to success, that secret to success is maintain your hunger. Too many people get complacent. You get your money raised, you get your A, you get your B round, all that stuff. You lose that hunger. And that hunger is a really key element to success.
Wonderful. I'm glad I asked that follow-up question. I learned a lot in this one. So, Len, who should be your guest on your, tell me about your podcast. Who should be your guest on Everything is Personal?
Yeah, we have many different types of guests. So we have scientists, we have athletes, we have musicians. It's things that I'm interested in. So the podcast talks about different things. We're not a podcast that talks about just cannabis, but we have cannabis leaders and industry leaders and business leaders, scientists. We are big fans of music. You can see behind me, I have my albums. So we talk about music a lot. So anybody that's in that industry as well. And then we talk about business. And so anybody who's a business leader, we like sciencey people too. So scientists come on, and then I have to be sort of the translator, because we get deep down in the hole of real science, and I have to say, lift it up a level for our audience. So I think those are the types of people that do really well on our podcast that I'm curious about. So anybody who has something interesting that I'm curious about, they're a great guest.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So if someone want to outreach to you, and what's the best way? Is that the endodna.com? Go to the
Endo
website.
DNA, or on social media, Len May, LenMay, Len May DNA. That's usually me. You can find me anywhere. I'm very responsive. You can email me, Len, Len at endodna.com. Reach out. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Len, I ask this question to almost every guest. That's about the question is about the growth hacking show. Your experience as being a guest on the show. And
Yeah.
here's my question: what would you say to your best friend about a growth hacking show when I'm not there?
I think that you are extremely prepared. It's a fun experience, and it's a learning experience for me as well. So when I'm going to share this with anybody, I just think it's a really entertaining experience, and you can definitely get a lot from it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. So, Len, as we are about to wrap up, what would you say as a final word?
The final word is that, first of all, check out endodna.com. See what we do. It's a really, really unique approach to being able to use someone's DNA to guide them to their overall health and wellness experience. Growth hacking, to me, starts with the individual. You have to make sure that you are working on yourself, your body, your immune system, your mind, in order for you to be successful in anything else you do. So you take control over your own personal health and wellness, and then you can move from there. So to me, that is the most important thing. Start with yourself, and then being able to help other people. It's that whole analogy. They say, if the mask comes down in a plane, put on yourself first before you take care of the person next to you. That's how I feel about your own personal health and wellness.
Great analogy with that one. Thank you so much, Len. On the behalf of Growth Hacking Show team and our entire community, we really appreciate you. This is Muhammad Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. All good wishes.
Appreciate it.